Everyone saw the plain waitress with the worn uniform and assumed they knew her story. The arrogant businessman mocked her right to her face in German, but when she pulled out her phone and showed him the bank statement, his empire belonged to her. Welcome to Hidden Legends. Before we begin this powerful story of courage, skill, and forgotten heroism, tell me in the comments where you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, hit that subscribe button and help us make sure they are. The chandeliers cast a warm glow across Romano's, one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants on East 64th Street. Crystal glasses caught the light like diamonds, and the mahogany floors gleamed under the soft illumination of hand-blown Italian fixtures. Each table was set with precision, sterling silver cutlery, French porcelain, and linen napkins folded into perfect peaks. Anna Martinez moved quietly between the tables at 6:30 p.m. on this crisp October evening, her black server's uniform showing honest wear at the cuffs, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail secured with a plain elastic band. No makeup adorned her olive-complexioned face, no jewelry except for a plain silver Omega watch that had belonged to her father, a timepiece that had timed 20 years of emergency surgeries before his heart attack claimed him. The wealthy patrons barely noticed her as she refilled water glasses and cleared bread plates. To them she was furniture, functional, unremarkable, existing only to serve their needs. They saw the faded uniform, the simple ponytail, the absence of designer accessories, and wrote her entire story in their minds. If only they knew that the woman silently removing their empty champagne flutes held an MBA from Wharton, spoke 5 languages fluently, and had once managed a portfolio worth more than most of their net worth combined. Klaus Adler occupied table 7 like a king holding court, his custom Brioni suit tailored so perfectly it seemed molded to his imposing frame. The German billionaire was 62 years old, silver-haired, with steel-gray eyes that missed nothing and forgave less. His presence filled the room. Conversations quieted when he entered, servers moved with extra precision, and even the sommelier treated his wine selection like a sacred ritual. Beside him sat Hans Muller, his personal assistant for 8 years, a thin man with nervous energy, who laughed too loudly at Klaus's jokes and took notes on everything. Hans had learned to mirror his boss's cruelty, finding safety in shared contempt for those he considered beneath them. Indifferent when Anna approached their table, Klaus barely lifted his eyes from his phone, where he was reviewing quarterly reports that would determine the fate of thousands of employees across 3 continents. He gestured vaguely at the wine list, then muttered something to Hans in rapid German, his voice carrying the casual cruelty of a man who had never been truly challenged. Dieser Restaurant stellt wirklich jeden ein. Schauen Sie sich diese Kellnerin an. Wahrscheinlich kann sie nicht einmal richtig lesen. Hans glanced at Anna with practiced disdain, his eyes cataloging her worn uniform and simple appearance. Wahrscheinlich versteht sie uns nicht einmal. Wir könnten über sie sprechen, als wäre sie nicht da. Anna set down their leather-bound menus with practiced precision, her movements economical and graceful despite the verbal assault happening inches from her face. Her expression remained perfectly neutral, years of service industry training combining with something deeper, the self-control learned in boardrooms where a single misplaced emotion could cost millions. Good evening, gentlemen. Can I start you with something to drink this evening? We have an excellent 2015 Bordeaux that I think you might enjoy. Klaus finally looked up, his gray eyes studying Anna's face for any sign that she understood their conversation. Finding none, he leaned back in his leather chair and spoke even more loudly in German, his voice carrying across nearby tables. Sehen Sie, genau wie ich dachte, eine weitere arme kleine amerikanische Kellnerin, die wahrscheinlich noch nie einen Bordeaux gesehen hat, geschweige denn weiß, wie man ihn ausspricht. At the adjacent table, Patricia Wells dabbed her lips with a monogrammed napkin, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the candlelight as she leaned toward her dinner companion. Patricia owned half of Manhattan's luxury real estate market and had never worked a service job in her perfectly manicured life. The standards here have really declined, haven't they, Richard? She said, not bothering to lower her voice as Anna passed. I mean, look at that girl's uniform, it's practically threadbare. Romano's used to have such elegance. Richard Stone barely looked up from his phone, where he was monitoring after-hours trading that would net him another few million before dessert arrived. As a hedge fund manager who destroyed companies for breakfast, he had perfected the art of dismissing people without even seeing them. Probably picked her up from some diner in Queens, Richard muttered, finally glancing at Anna as she gracefully maneuvered around a busboy carrying a tray of dirty dishes. I bet she's never even heard of half the wines on their list. The conversation was having its intended effect. Other diners were starting to notice and whisper among themselves. Some looked genuinely uncomfortable with the cruelty, but others seemed entertained by the impromptu theater of class warfare playing out before their appetizers. Anna continued her work with unshakable composure, her movements precise and economical, but behind her calm exterior, memories stirred like ghosts. She remembered different halls, the marble corridors of Wharton Business School, where she had been the youngest person in her MBA program and one of only 3 women in her advanced German literature seminar. She remembered her thesis defense, conducted entirely in German, on the economic philosophy of post-war reconstruction. Professor Heinrich Weber, a visiting scholar from Frankfurt, had said her German was so flawless he thought she was a native speaker. That was before her world changed, before duty called her away from conference rooms and corner offices. In the corner booth, Anna Martinez sat with quiet dignity, her gray hair styled in soft waves that couldn't quite hide the effects of months of chemotherapy. At 68, she was still beautiful, the kind of beauty that came from surviving poverty, raising a brilliant daughter alone, and never losing her gentle spirit despite life's hardships. Elena had worked 3 jobs to put Anna through school, cleaning offices at night, translating documents for immigration lawyers during the day, and taking in sewing on weekends. Now, watching her daughter navigate the cruel entertainment of wealthy strangers, Elena's eyes held nothing but pride and love. Anna had left everything behind when Elena was diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer 18 months ago. Her corner office at Goldman Sachs, her penthouse apartment on the Upper West Side, her BMW, her entire carefully constructed life, none of it mattered when faced with the possibility of losing the woman who had given her everything. Working at Romano's wasn't about the money. Anna could have bought the restaurant twice over with her investment portfolio. It was about being present for Elena's favorite ritual, the evening chocolate soufflé that was the only thing she could still taste properly, served by the daughter she had raised to conquer the world. Klaus's voice cut through her reverie like a blade. Ich wette, sie hat nie eine richtige Ausbildung gehabt. Schauen Sie, wie sie sich bewegt, wie ein verlorenes Tier. Hans joined in with increasing boldness, emboldened by his boss's performance and the growing audience. Wahrscheinlich lebt sie in irgendeinem schäbigen Apartment mit 5 Mitbewohnern und träumt davon, eines Tages an diesen Tischen zu sitzen. Klaus's eyes focused on Anna's watch with predatory interest. Schauen Sie sich Ihre Uhr an, Hans. Wahrscheinlich von einem Flohmarkt oder aus einem Pfandhaus. Sie versucht respektabel auszusehen, aber man kann Armut nicht verstecken. Anna's hand instinctively went to her father's Omega Speedmaster, the same model worn by astronauts who had walked on the moon. Dr. Carlos Martinez had worn it through 20 years of emergency surgery, checking it between life and death decisions, until his own heart gave out in the OR he had called home. The watch was worth more than Klaus's assistant made in a year, but its value wasn't measured in dollars. It was her father's final gift, accompanied by a note that said, Midja, time is the most precious thing we have, use yours wisely. As Anna moved to refill Klaus's water glass, he decided to escalate his cruel performance. He stood up, his commanding presence drawing every eye in the restaurant, his voice carrying across the hushed dining room as he continued his verbal assault in German. Klaus rose from his chair like an actor taking center stage, his tall frame commanding the attention of every patron in Romano's. At 62, he had perfected the art of dominating a room, whether it was a boardroom full of executives or a restaurant full of unsuspecting diners. Meine Damen und Herren, he began, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Erlauben Sie mir, Ihnen diese perfekte Verkörperung des modernen amerikanischen Servicestandards zu präsentieren. The restaurant fell into an uneasy quiet, the soft clink of silverware against china suddenly seeming too loud. Some diners looked genuinely uncomfortable, shifting in their seats and avoiding eye contact. Others leaned forward with the hungry expression of spectators at a gladiator match. Klaus gestured toward Anna with the grand flourish of a ringmaster. Beobachten Sie, wie sie sich bewegt, so unsicher, so gewöhnlich. Sie repräsentiert alles, was mit diesem Land nicht stimmt. Keine Bildung, keine Würde, keine Zukunft. Hans rose to join his boss's performance, his thin frame trembling with nervous excitement. He had learned that safety lay in amplifying Klaus's cruelty, in being the echo chamber for his boss's worst impulses. Schauen Sie sich Ihre Hände an, Herr Adler, Rau von der Arbeit wie die einer Bäuerin, und dieser Akzent, so amerikanisch. Patricia Wells, emboldened by the spectacle, raised her wineglass slightly in a mock toast. She had been raised in Connecticut boarding schools where cruelty was refined into an art form, and she recognized a masterclass when she saw one. At least she knows her place, Patricia said in English, loud enough for everyone to hear. It's refreshing to see someone who understands the natural order of things. Richard Stone finally looked up from his phone, sensing an opportunity to impress the billionaire at table 7. In his world of hostile takeovers and corporate warfare, allying with the most powerful person in the room was survival instinct. I'm sure she's doing her best with limited capabilities, Richard added, his voice dripping with false sympathy. We can't all be blessed with education and opportunity. Anna stood perfectly still during this verbal assault, her posture erect, her hands clasped calmly in front of her. She remembered another moment of public humiliation, her first day at Goldman Sachs, when a senior partner had questioned whether a small-town girl belonged in their Manhattan offices. That day, she had spoken only when necessary, let her work speak for itself, and within 6 months had earned more respect than colleagues who had been there for years. She had learned that dignity wasn't something that could be taken from you, it was something you carried within yourself, regardless of circumstances. Klaus, drunk on his own performance and the intoxicating silence of his audience, decided to deliver his grand finale. Sie kann wahrscheinlich nicht einmal bis 100 zählen, geschweige denn verstehen, was wahre Bildung bedeutet. Ich bezweifle, dass sie jemals ein Buch gelesen hat, das nicht in Bildern geschrieben war. A comment drew actual laughter from several tables, the sound sharp and ugly in the elegant dining room. What had started as one man's cruelty was becoming a collective assault, a feeding frenzy of class privilege and casual inhumanity. But Klaus wasn't finished. Schauen Sie sie an, sie versteht nicht einmal, dass wir über sie lachen, wie ein Tier im Zoo, das die Besucher anstarrt und nicht versteht, warum sie zeigen und lachen. That was the moment something shifted in Anna's eyes. Not anger. Anger would have been too simple, too expected. Instead, there was something far more powerful, complete and utter composure, the kind that comes from absolute certainty about who you are and what you're capable of. She set down the water pitcher with deliberate precision, each movement controlled and purposeful. The uncertain waitress Klaus had been mocking began to fade, replaced by someone else entirely. Anna looked directly at Klaus, her dark eyes suddenly blazing with an intelligence so sharp it seemed to cut through the restaurant's warm lighting. When she spoke, her voice was low, controlled, and carried the unmistakable authority of someone who had never really been powerless at all. Herr Adler, she began, her German not just fluent but flawless, with the refined accent of someone educated in the finest institutions. Sie haben völlig recht. Ich verstehe Sie in der Tat perfekt, jedes einzelne grausame Wort. The restaurant fell into absolute silence, as if someone had sucked all the oxygen from the room. Klaus's performative confidence crumbled like a house of cards, his face cycling through confusion, recognition, and growing horror. Das kann nicht, he whispered in German, his voice barely audible. Anna's voice remained perfectly controlled, each word in German pronounced with the precision of someone who had spent years in boardrooms where every syllable carried weight. Ich erinnere mich sehr gut an unser letztes Treffen, Herr Adler. Sie saßen am Ende des Konferenztisches und ich präsentierte die Quartalszahlen für Ihre europäischen Niederlassungen. She paused, letting the weight of recognition settle over him before continuing. Sie trugen ihren marineblauen Anzug von Savile Row, und sie beschwerten sich über die Kaffeequalität. Sie sagten, und ich zitiere, warum kann ein Unternehmen dieser Größe keinen anständigen Espresso servieren? Klaus's face had gone completely white, his hand gripping the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles were bloodless. Hans looked between his boss and Anna like a man watching a car accident in slow motion, understanding that something catastrophic was happening but unable to process the full scope. Anna reached into her apron with steady hands, her movements deliberate and unhurried. She withdrew not just her phone but a thin leather portfolio that looked decidedly out of place on a waitress, because it wasn't a waitress's portfolio. The phone screen displayed an official document bearing the Adler Holdings corporate logo, complete with Klaus's own signature, the board of directors' digital signatures, and the German Federal Banking Authority's official seal. The document was dated just 3 months ago and clearly identified Anna Martinez Adler as the beneficial owner of 38% of Adler Holdings' outstanding shares. Anna turned to address the entire restaurant, her voice carrying clearly to every corner of the dining room. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe introductions are in order. She paused. My name is Anna Martinez Adler, and I am indeed, as Mr. Adler correctly suspected, someone who understands the value of education. She opened the leather portfolio to reveal documents that told a very different story than the one Klaus had constructed. I graduated summa cum laude from Wharton Business School with dual master's degrees in international finance and Germanic literature. I speak 5 languages fluently, including the German that Mr. Adler assumed I couldn't understand. Until 18 months ago, I was a managing director at Goldman Sachs, specializing in European acquisitions. My team was responsible for some of the largest cross-border transactions in recent financial history, including the acquisition that made me the second largest individual shareholder in Adler Holdings Bank. The restaurant erupted in a symphony of gasps, dropped silverware, and urgent whispers. Patricia Wells actually choked on her wine, her diamond bracelet clattering against her glass as her hand trembled. Richard Stone's phone slipped from his nerveless fingers, the screen cracking as it hit the marble floor. Anna continued with relentless calm. 3 years ago, when my private equity firm acquired our controlling position in Adler Holdings, you personally assured me, Mr. Adler, that your company valued respect, dignity, and the fundamental humanity of all people, regardless of their position in life. Her voice carried a note of genuine sadness. You told me that Adler Holdings prided itself on being a company that judged people by their character and capabilities, not by their appearance or circumstances. I'm curious, Mr. Adler, do you remember that conversation? It was in your corner office, the one with the view of the Brandenburg Gate. You served champagne and spoke passionately about creating a corporate culture based on mutual respect. Anna's recall was devastating in its accuracy. The champagne was Dom Perignon 2008, and you mentioned it was your favorite vintage because it reminded you of your father's philosophy. Quality reveals itself in the details. Do you still believe that, Mr. Adler? Klaus had sunk back into his chair, his earlier commanding presence replaced by the posture of a man whose world was collapsing around him. Hans had gone from cruel enabler to terrified employee in the span of minutes, already calculating how to distance himself from the disaster unfolding before him. Anna gestured toward Elena, who had risen from her corner booth and was walking slowly toward the center of the dining room. Despite her illness, Elena carried herself with unmistakable dignity, her gray hair catching the chandelier light like a crown. "This is my mother, Anna Martinez," Anna said, her voice warming with love. 45 years ago, she arrived in New York with nothing but hope and determination. She worked 3 jobs to put me through school, cleaning offices at night, translating documents during the day, and taking in alterations on weekends. When she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 18 months ago, I didn't hesitate for even a moment. I left Goldman Sachs, liquidated my apartment, and took this job at Romano's. She paused, not because I needed the money, but because this is her favorite restaurant, and the evening chocolate soufflé is one of the few things she can still taste properly. I work here so I can spend these precious months with the woman who taught me that honest work has honor, regardless of the salary, so I can ensure that every evening she can sit in that corner booth and remember what it feels like to be somewhere beautiful. Anna's voice took on a deeper resonance. My mother taught me that how you treat people when you think no one important is watching reveals who you really are, that dignity isn't determined by your bank account, and that education isn't just about degrees, it's about wisdom, compassion, and the courage to stand up for what's right. Elena reached her daughter's side and took her hand, their fingers intertwining with the easy comfort of 2 people who had faced life's battles together. Her voice, though weakened by treatment, carried clearly across the silent restaurant. My daughter could have chosen any path in life, Elena said in accented but perfect English. She had offers from banks in London, consulting firms in Tokyo, investment companies in Dubai. But when I got sick, she chose love over ambition, family over fortune. The sight of the 2 women, one fighting cancer with quiet dignity, the other who had given up everything to be present for the fight, created a moment of such raw humanity that several diners openly wept. A man at table 12, a surgeon who recognized sacrifice when he saw it, stood up and began to clap. Within seconds, the entire restaurant was on its feet, applause thundering through the elegant dining room like a rainstorm on a tin roof. The ovation went on for nearly 2 minutes, waves of appreciation rolling over Anna and Elena as they stood together in the center of the room. Even some of the servers from the kitchen had emerged to join the applause, tears streaming down their faces. While the restaurant celebrated, Klaus sat frozen in his chair, his earlier arrogance replaced by the hollow expression of a man watching his reputation crumble in real time. Hans was already on his phone, presumably trying to contact their PR team, but his shaking hands could barely hold the device. As the applause finally died down, Patricia Wells approached Anna with tears streaking her carefully applied makeup. "I owe you the most profound apology," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "What I said tonight, there's no excuse for it. You've shown me something about myself that I don't like very much." Anna accepted the apology with the same dignity she had shown throughout the evening. "We all make assumptions, Mrs. Wells. The important thing is what we do when we realize we're wrong." Richard Stone stood up from his table, his usual arrogance replaced by something resembling shame. I want to apologize as well. What happened here tonight, it's not who I want to be." Unknown to the participants in this drama, several diners had recorded portions of the evening on their phones. By morning, hashtags like Respect All Workers, Hidden Heroes, and Anna Inspires would be trending worldwide, with millions sharing their own stories of workplace dignity and family sacrifice. But the consequences were already beginning. Klaus's phone buzzed incessantly with calls from board members, clients, and business partners who had seen early posts about the evening's events. Each call brought worse news: canceled meetings, withdrawn contracts, demands for his immediate resignation. Hans found himself in an even worse position. Video clips of his cruel laughter and enabling behavior had already been shared thousands of times. By morning, he would discover that his professional reputation was so thoroughly destroyed that no major firm would consider hiring him. At Waitress, a business journalist who had been dining at table 8 was already drafting an article for the Wall Street Journal. When Power Meets Grace, a lesson in leadership from an unexpected source. The story would spark conversations in boardrooms across America about corporate culture and the treatment of service workers. As the evening wound down and the other diners gradually returned to their meals, now speaking in hushed, respectful tones, Anna and Elena sat together at the corner booth, sharing a slice of the famous chocolate soufflé. "Are you proud of what you did tonight, Misha?" Elena asked softly, her eyes twinkling with the mischief that illness hadn't been able to steal. Anna considered the question carefully. "I'm proud that I stood up for dignity, yours, mine, and everyone who's ever been dismissed because of their job title, but I'm not proud of the public humiliation, even though Klaus earned it." Elena smiled, the expression transforming her tired face. "Your father used to say that the measure of a person isn't how they treat their superiors, but how they treat those who can do nothing for them. Tonight you reminded everyone of that truth." Marco, the young server who had worked alongside Anna for months, approached their table hesitantly. Ms. Martinez Adler, I just wanted to say thank you for showing us that we matter, that our work has dignity." Anna looked up at him with genuine warmth. "Marco, you've always mattered. Tonight didn't change your worth, it just helped other people see what was always there." Over the following days, the effects of that evening rippled outward like stones thrown into still water. Romano's implemented new policies protecting servers from harassment. Other high-end restaurants followed suit, training their staff to intervene when customers treated servers poorly. Klaus Adler's empire began to crumble with stunning speed. The Adler Holdings Board held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously for his immediate resignation. His attempts to spin the story as a misunderstanding only made things worse, as more videos emerged showing the full extent of his cruelty. Hans disappeared from social media entirely after receiving thousands of messages condemning his behavior. He was forced to move back to Germany, where he took a low-level position at a small regional bank, his dreams of wealth and power permanently shattered. But perhaps the most significant change occurred within Adler Holdings itself. The board appointed Anna as interim CEO, and her first action was implementing comprehensive respect and dignity training for all employees, from janitors to vice presidents. The Respect All Workers movement that emerged from that evening led to legislative hearings on workplace dignity and corporate responsibility. Anna was invited to testify before Congress about the importance of treating all workers with respect, regardless of their position. Despite the offers that flooded in minors' book deals, speaking engagements, consulting opportunities worth millions, Anna made a different choice. She restructured her role at Adler Holdings to work remotely, allowing her to continue as Elena's primary caregiver while using her platform to advocate for workers' rights. Every night, she still brought Elena to Romano's for chocolate soufflé. But now, instead of being invisible, Anna was greeted with warmth and respect by staff and patrons alike, not because of her wealth or position, but because she had shown them the power of standing up for what's right. Elena's health remained fragile, but the joy and pride she felt watching her daughter use her experience to help others seemed to give her additional strength. Their evening conversations became richer, filled with plans for the foundation they would establish to support children of service workers in pursuing higher education. 6 months later, the Anna Martinez Foundation opened its doors, offering scholarships and mentorship to young people whose parents worked in service industries. The foundation's headquarters occupied the top floor of the same building where Anna had once worked at Goldman Sachs, but now the view from those windows looked out on a different kind of future. Klaus made several attempts to apologize publicly, but his efforts were seen as self-serving damage control. He eventually retreated to a small estate in Bavaria, where he lived in relative obscurity, his name forever associated with the viral video that had cost him everything. During a television interview 6 months after the incident, Anna was asked what she had learned from the experience. "I learned that true power isn't about having control over others," she said. "It's about using whatever influence you have to lift up those around you, to create a world where dignity isn't determined by job titles or bank account balances." "Do you regret leaving your high-paying career to become a waitress?" Anna's answer was immediate and unwavering. "I didn't leave my career, I found my calling. Those months working at Romano's taught me more about leadership, courage, and human dignity than all my years in boardrooms combined. Romano's became a destination for people from around the world who wanted to meet the waitress who had changed everything. But Anna remained unchanged by fame, still serving tables 3 evenings a week, still bringing Elena her chocolate soufflé, still treating every customer with the same respectful professionalism. Elena's condition had stabilized enough for her to become actively involved in the foundation's work, interviewing scholarship candidates and sharing her story of immigrant determination with young people who needed to hear that dreams were possible. The restaurant industry itself began to change. Major chains implemented dignity policies protecting workers from harassment. Business schools added courses on ethical leadership and workplace respect to their curricula. Anna used her position on various corporate boards to advocate for worker dignity initiatives. Her influence extended far beyond Adler Holdings, as other companies sought her guidance on creating respectful workplace cultures. The story became a modern parable about the danger of making assumptions and the power of treating every person with dignity. It reminded the world that heroes don't always wear suits or carry briefcases. Sometimes they wear aprons and carry serving trays. In her final speech at a workers' rights conference, Anna left the audience with these words: "Every day we have the choice to see each person we meet as either an opportunity to lift someone up or to put someone down. The choice we make defines not just their day, but our own character." Remember that the person serving your coffee might be supporting 3 children while earning a nursing degree. The janitor cleaning your office might speak 4 languages and be working towards citizenship. The waitress taking your order might own the company you work for. Don't wait for a viral video to remind you to treat people with respect. Don't wait until someone reveals their hidden story to see their worth. See it now, honor it now. Because everyone has a story, everyone has dignity, and everyone deserves to be treated like the full human being they are. Anna Martinez Adler never stopped being a waitress. She just became a waitress who happened to own banks, run foundations, and change the world. And she proved that sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones you almost overlooked. So the next time you're tempted to judge someone by their uniform, their accent, or their circumstances, remember Anna's story. Remember that legends aren't always loud, aren't always obvious, and aren't always sitting at the head table. Sometimes they're standing quietly beside you, wearing an apron, carrying a tray, and changing the world one act of dignity at a time. Thank you for joining us at Hidden Legends. If Anna's story moved you, share it with someone who needs to remember their own hidden strength. Tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from, and what's your story of finding courage in unexpected places? Until next time, remember, the most powerful stories aren't always the loudest ones. Sometimes they're whispered over chocolate soufflé, shared between a mother and daughter, and lived out in the quiet moments when we choose dignity over dominance, love over power, and service over self. Keep your eyes open. The next legend you meet might be serving your dinner.